Hey everyone, welcome to the Dallo Podcast. This is going to be episode 56. This week I am joined by David. Hi.
Hey.
My dad.
Hey everybody.
And also special guest, Di.
Hey.
So this week we're going to be starting off the whole October Horror Fest things that we're going to be doing for the podcast and everything. So each week there's going to be a themed topic, whether we're going to be talking about movies, horror, ghost stories, the paranormal investigations that my Uncle Colin had, and just other fun, scary things that we've done or have experienced in our lives. So this week, we're just going to kind of go into it and see where the conversation goes. So is there something y'all want to start going off on, Dad or Di?
I'll have to say October is probably one of my favorite months with, Halloween and the fall coming in. It starts to get cooler. You don't have to put up with 100-degree weather anymore.
What state do you live in?
Kansas.
Oh, that explains a lot.
Yeah,
we don't get warm until just before spring.
Or right
I mean, we don't get cold until just
we don't.
Yeah, cold
Yeah.
cold is like January. If you're
it's
lucky.
about 4 hours during January.
Yeah. It's
Wow,
probably
let's
like
turn off the
70
AC.
degrees the rest of the month.
Oh, that's good.
I'd say. Yeah, I would hope.
I remember when, for us, it was, we would have nice cold weather, like maybe 1 week in September, then it would be hot. And then it would be like, we'd be lucky if from the 15th of October through everywhere else, all the way up to the end of the year was nice and cold. If not, it was shorts for Halloween. It was shorts for Thanksgiving. It was shorts for Christmas. So,
But you know what's interesting about that is when I was younger, that's not how it was. I remember about the second week of October, we'd start getting some pretty decent cold fronts. And one of my favorite, when they were little, we were out trick-or-treating with everybody. And I remember we were walking down the road going to another neighborhood, and you could see it, the front as it was coming through. It was just like this wall approaching you. And it was very warm on one side of it. And then as it passed us, the leaves moved. It was like out of a movie. And all of a sudden everybody was like, man, it just got really cold.
Wow.
And see, some of us were wearing cloaks as part of our costume because we went as some of our D&D characters. So we just flipped the cloaks up and wrapped around us and kept walking. But some people were in shorts and wearing skimpy, thin costumes. And man, they were freezing. I was like, man, that says October right there, that moment. And that gets you all pumped for the holidays.
Wow.
oh, there goes either the cat did that or it was
No, that was the cat. She just,
it was a
I don't know
ghost.
what she was doing, but she fell off of the TV stand backwards.
Oh, wow.
She must have saw something.
Are you okay? Don't look at me funny. I didn't do it.
Is it so it's always probably 80 to 90 on Halloween for you guys, or on average?
I mean, you have the occasional times, right, where it'll break off and not be that way, right? I mean, we do get we're having a cool front come through tonight, I think.
It was it was supposed to have been Sunday, then it got moved to Monday morning, and it didn't get here at all today. So hopefully, because it will get it before you guys get it, because I'm further north than you guys are.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, is that we got this is the thing that blocked us from getting the hurricane, so which is a good thing.
Yeah, it's been a minute since we've had one.
Mm-hmm.
You start hearing people talk about how we're due, and it's like, you know what?
I just remember after the front, they were saying, oh, it's going to be in the low 80s for the whole week. And then I got up Sunday, I was like, man, that ain't even close. And then today I walked out to take the trash out, and I was like, do they know what an 8 and a 0 look like when they're put together that way? Because this ain't 80.
No.
It's almost like 800, but not 80.
Yeah, the lowest high that my app says right now that we're going to be getting over the next week is 84. Everything else is still low 90s. Like
Yeah.
the lows get down to the 60s, but highs are still up mid to high 80s.
What's funny
So-
here is here, if it's like 6 degrees below normal, which is like 90, everybody puts on sweaters and coats. And you're like, why are you wearing a sweater? Oh, because, I want to, it's fall. No, fall is when, everything starts to die and we go through that transition. These trees are blooming and my truck is covered in pollen. I don't think fall is here yet.
Yeah.
That would have totally made Halloween a different movie back then if it had the temperature we do. It's Michael Myers would been like, man, it's hot in this freaking jumpsuit. I need to take this off, and he would have been walking around
You're walking around in heart-shaped boxers.
boxers.
And then with all the
Mascot.
pollen, with all the pollen, you just hear him sneezing constantly, right?
Constantly.
But
That's why he
while
was.
he's-
That's why he
while
was
he's hiding,
breathing
all
so
of a sudden
heavy.
you just hear, whew, and like the closet like doors rattle. Like, oh, we know where he is.
You know where he is. He's right there.
Yeah, I miss things, and the weather was different as a child. I grew up in San Antonio, and so that's right in the middle, of Texas. So I remember, it being cooler, and we used to have a lot of pecan and other trees, and my brothers and I would get out and rake up about a 4 or 5 foot pile of leaves, and then get up on ladders and dive into it, and then have to do it all over again. And my dad would just sit out there and barbecue and go, y'all are doing that all wrong. You're supposed to be putting it in them garbage bags and getting it out of my backyard.
The thing that I haven't seen in years, and I remember doing it a bunch as a kid, were the jack-o'-lantern leaf bags, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, I
People
remember
would bag
those.
up all their leaves, put them in those giant jack-o'-lanterns, and they would just set them out in their yard. I
In
haven't
their
seen
yard,
those in a
yeah.
while.
Yeah. Last
Now,
time I saw it was like 10 years ago.
Up here where I live is a lot of farm country. So there's a lot of hay bales. And
Yeah.
what people will go out and do is paint jack-o'-lanterns on them and all kinds of
Yeah.
stuff out here. So it's kind of visually nice, but it's just not the same. I mean, I when you wake up here and it's snowing, I've been here for over 10 years, and I've had I'm gonna say about almost 5 white Christmases, and that is just the greatest thing in the world. What really is bad is like when it's just before Christmas and we get a warm front, and so you're in shorts, you're in a t-shirt walking around, and then like the day after Christmas, all of a sudden a cold front comes through and you get snow. You're like, where were you? I had to turn my AC on so I could run the fireplace.
The worst thing is when we're
Christmas.
up there for that and stuff, and it's like we're waiting for the stuff to come down, the nice cool temperatures, and then we got to go back home, and it's like, yeah, it snowed up here after you guys left. Dang it.
See, y'all are the problem then. We figured it out.
Yeah.
You got to wait for the snow to hit, and then you go up there, because otherwise it's never going to come.
That happened to me twice in my life. I went to Denver for some training. I was there for 2 weeks, and they were up until I landed on the plane in a storm. We were told that I would be going into snow. So I carried my jacket, warm weather clothes, got there, nothing. It was running about 89 degrees. It was like a hot, it was like in November. And so it was hot, and they were all going, man, I can't believe this is unusual weather and all this stuff. And I was like, yeah, they were like telling me, oh, it's really beautiful when you can see the mountains and it's snowing and all this other stuff. I didn't even know there were mountains where I was until the next day after we had a clear sky. And I walked out of the hotel room and was like, where the hell did they come from? And you could just see the whole sky was filled with mountains. And it was all clouds when I got there the first day. And then I flew back home. And that night that I got home, I talked to a friend of mine. He was like, man, it snowed almost immediately after your plane took off. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. And then it happened again when I went to Atlantic City for a training. And the last day I was there, I'd been walking up and down the boardwalk to the hotel I was in. Taj Mahal, Trump's Taj Mahal, great. And I would walk back, and they kept telling me, if you're on the boardwalk, you beeline straight to the hotel, because they wanted me to If you stayed too late, you missed the trams for the hotel that would drive you around, and there's no buses. And if you tried to walk and cut through streets to get there to my hotel quick, you ran into some pretty scary people. And I remember one time I finally went, man, after what happened last night, because I was cutting down an alley, then I was going to go across and it'd be right at my hotel entrance. And I left the boardwalk. And in the back of my head, it's like, stupid, 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 bad mistake. You shouldn't have done this. Then there's like two guys leaning up against a wall by an alley. So I cut across the side of the street, hear this damn crash in an alley that I was walking by. And there's like four guys walking towards me. I was like, man, and I just kind of was huffing it a little bit faster. And eventually I could, they were behind me. I looked back and they're like walking at me. And these two police officers on bicycles stopped and saw me walking, and then all of a sudden they were gone. It was like cockroaches running from the daylight. And they were like, what are you doing? I said, man, I'm trying to get back to my hotel. I was just left one of the seminars over there. And they were like, we'll go with you. So they rode with me on the bike while I walked and got me safely to the hotel. So the next night I was like, that ain't happening again. So I got a cab. I said, my company's paying for this. They can pay for my cab. Cab driver dropped me off at the wrong hotel. I didn't even think about it, wasn't thinking about it. Opened the door, got out, and he goes, all right, you have a good night. And he drives off, and I turn and go, this is not my friggin' hotel. Where the hell am I? So I had to walk all the way down the street to get to the boardwalk so I could find my bearings and then make it to my hotel. And most of the stuff there closed up after it got dark, A lot of great food places along the boardwalk, but man, that was after dark, it became a whole different city. And we, that last night, I saw those same bicycle cops, and I was sitting there leaning on the rail, and I could feel the cool air coming off the Atlantic, and it was just blowing, and you could smell that salty air, and that like there was this massive cold front coming. And they were like, hey, how are you doing? How did everything go? I'm fine. I'm going back home tomorrow. And they go, man, you're going to miss it. And I go, what do you mean? They go, man, we got a cold front coming through. It's supposed to bring about 3 or 4 inches of snow. And I was like, that figures. Got home, got back to the hotel, packed everything. Never got to wear any of my winter stuff. And when I flew out, you could see the snow coming in at the airport. And then we flew in. I had to flew in from there into Pittsburgh where it was snowing and transfer on the tarmac to another plane. And I was like, oh, it's snow all over the ground. Yeah. And I was like, oh, we're going to take off in this shit. Excuse me, you can edit that out.
You're fine, Dad.
And then we flew back in it. And when I flew into Intercontinental, jumped on a puddle jumper, and then flew into Arlington. And that's where they picked me up. And I walked out of that plane, and it was like hot, humid. And I was like, I'm home.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not even going to kiss the ground because it's not even worth it, because it's just, I might burn my lips.
All I heard from that is that the moral of the story is, thank God Uber exists now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know if even Uber's safe,
Well,
yeah.
If you get into the back of
when I was in Boston this past summer for some work stuff, Uber was pretty easy. Thankfully, I had a couple good drivers that knew their way around the city because there was a bunch of construction and stuff going on, but it definitely made it easy because all the guys that I was there with for this conference, they had decided at the last minute to change hotels to a completely different hotel from the one that they had originally picked. And I didn't realize they changed it in time. So I was still at the old hotel, which was over by the airport, and they were at some weird hipster hotel that had like purple rooms that were half the size of mine. And they spent the whole week complaining about them. And I'm like, yeah, my room's nice and big and awesome. I don't know what y'all are talking about. So, but they were within walking distance of the conference center, whereas I had to either catch a shuttle from the conference back or I had to catch an Uber. But because I was hanging out with them and we were just walking all around the city the whole time, I always had to get Ubers at the end of the night. So that worked out all right. Knock wood, I guess.
in case you ever go back.
Huh?
But I said, in case you ever go back, knock on wood, just,
Yeah.
the,
Don't have one of those bad Uber experiences that would, or just a bad, traveling
You-
city experience in general.
you're in trouble if you get in an Uber and your driver puts on a napkin and starts saying grace.
So that'd be a little off-putting, yeah.
Yeah. Especially if there's no bag of food in the car.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, I mean, you really have to, like, yeah. The more the worry would be is if he like took out salt packets, started tearing them open, and then throwing them back at me, right?
what are you doing? Oh, I spilled some salt. I'm just,
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's for good luck. But isn't it the other shoulder for good
It
luck?
is. But if somebody's throwing salt on you, you're gonna, try to rationalize it any way you can.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can. Yeah.
When
Just
they
like,
start-
It's like, is this paprika?
they threw a pepper at you. You're achoo. What are you throwing back here, man?
Your trouble if it's that red Chinese hot sauce.
That'd be awkward. Speaking of cannibalism,
What a great segue.
All
yeah,
right. What do we
something,
got?
right? Oh, it's not quite horror. I was at Walmart. I was looking at some stuff, and I saw a box set for a show called The Dirty Black Bag, I think, on AMC. It bills itself as a throwback to the spaghetti westerns, but it comes off as more of it comes off more as the Weird West. So like in episode 2, one of the guys gets captured by a cannibal, and he's like torturing him. He's getting ready to like kill him, all this stuff, and certain shenanigans happen. But there was a cool little moment kind of stolen from Dusk Till Dawn, where it pulls back away from the dude's house, and like over by his house he had created this huge bone structure that looked like an eye. And before that, he was like reading like a weird book of evil or whatever. So I haven't gotten any further in the series. I'm hoping that it leans more into that Weird West element and kind of
It
goes
does.
for that sort of,
It does.
that it's that's something that I would love to see more done with, is that kind of, and we sort of touched on a good example of it in the last episode with Near Dark, right? I'd never seen Near Dark. I just recently watched it a few weeks ago, and seeing that kind of like horror infused idea for Westerns, I
So
wish
David,
someone would go out there and tap into.
I
Because that
can
would
build
be,
a time machine. I'm going to go back and find you and give you the proper upbringing that you deserve, because you missed out on so much as a child.
I'm catching up.
Now, have you seen Bone Tomahawk with Kurt
Oh, yeah.
Russell? Man,
Oh,
I yeah.
That was
And
brutal.
then there's that one, The Barriers, which are about these creatures that the Indians knew about. They were like eaters of the dead. They burrowed in the ground. And
So kind of Wendigos.
no, Wendigo is a spirit that if you partake of flesh, it infuses with you or in
Right.
you, and it gives you cravings. Now, these are creatures that burrow under the ground, very similar to, I don't know if you've ever seen a Kevin Costner movie called The Other Daughter. The same kind of spirit things, and they're hard to kill, but they in the burrow, they kidnap a bunch of people, and the people think it's Indians, so they go hunting for them, and they end up having to team up to fight these things, and they, just one or two of them survived the whole ordeal. That's a great Western. The one that I'm getting into right now is the one with Josh Brolin, where he's the rancher, and there's a big hole on his property where people fall in, and it has a lot to do with time travel. And that's all I'm going to say, because I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but it is really good so far.
So, Di, have you watched anything recently as far as horror stuff or getting ready for October?
I'm not too sure. I mean, probably for the horror game, I might play one of the newer Resident Evil games to get caught up. And The Quarry, I hear that one's pretty good, because I really did like Until Dawn. It's by the same people, so I really did like that one. I know I was kind of cheap going into that Until Dawn, because they said, oh, well, they're going to pick your fears. And so I picked whatever I was not scared of in the beginning. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to make this easy on me. Because
Stay
I'm a,
Puft Marshmallow Man.
yeah, because I'm a coward, honestly, when I'm playing some games, especially like the Ju-on games. Have you ever played any of them?
No, but the
No.
movies, the
Yeah.
movies mess with you, especially the actual
Oh,
original.
yeah,
Man.
yeah, that stuff's scary.
Like
You-
Pulse. Man. I used to prepare myself, I would watch a few classics and then watch my Asian horror and then kind of build up to my tolerance. Because you can watch an Asian horror film, you can watch anything.
Mhm.
But living by myself, it's kind of like, I used to just play till late hours, and pretty scary games. And then I would like, okay, I'm getting too freaked out and I'm going to put this up and I'm going to go to bed. And then you'd be laying there and every noise, everything is like drawing attention. So now I'm older. I'm like, hell with that. I'll play it during the day. And then it goes off at night.
Yeah.
I used to be terrified of this movie that was called Beyond the Door. And it used to scare me and my brothers. And the commercial would always come on with the door slamming. It's a possession movie, and I don't like those for my own personal reason. And
Yeah.
it would always have this girl like "Rah!" in your face in the commercial, man. And I remember my brothers and I used to sit right in front of the TV, and my dad would go, get away from the TV. You're too close, Mom. You better hurt your eyes. That movie taught us to move away from the television because you never knew when that damn commercial was coming on. And you'd be like right up against the television, look, it's like in your face. You're like, oh shit. And you fall back, and my dad would laugh and go, yeah, that's what you get. But will you stop it, Kat? I used to grow up in a house where the lights would go off a lot. And it was an old house where you had those screw-in fuses, which were outside of the house. So you had to walk all the way through the house, outside, down the step, down the alley along the side of the house, open up the fuse thing, which had to be locked so people don't come and steal or turn things off and try to break in. And I remember one night I was reading The Exorcist. My brother Gene was in the tub and Mike was watching something on television, and that commercial came on, and Mike went, Gene goes, screamed because Mike screamed, and then the electricity went off, and I threw that damn book across the room. And then I crawled on the ground and found Mike and was like, shut up, just quit screaming. And then we had to crawl through the hall to find where my brother was in the tub. And we pulled him out of the tub, and then we crawled our way to the front door. And I said, we got on my porch. I said, I'm gonna go check the light. And then I went, and I couldn't get in because it was locked. And I was like, I got to go back in the house. And I walked up, and they're all sitting, and I started to open the door, and I'm, what the hell with this? And I started walking, and they're like, where are you going? I said, I'm gonna go sit down under that street light. I ain't going in here and try to figure out what's going on after that. And my brother's like, I ain't got any clothes on. I was like, well, that's your fault. You were in the shower. And he was like, fine. And he just walks down the street strutting his stuff. And we're sitting underneath this street lamp about a block away from our house. And my mom and dad are coming home from being out that night. And I see the truck pass. I was like, I think that's Dad. And then it started to back up, and he's like, what the hell are y'all doing out of the house this time? Lights out. Why didn't you put in the fuse? Because I couldn't find the key. It was a lie. But he didn't know that. And he was like, we were like, okay, he's going to let us jump into the back of the bed and he'll drive us home. And he was like, no, y'all got your ass down here. Y'all can figure out how to walk home. And we saw him just head back towards the house and park. And so we're like walking. My mom's just like shaking her head. She wraps her coat around my brother, Gene. And then we go to walk in, and my dad's like, okay, you guys go in first. What the hell? You're the dad? And he's like kind of nudging us. And he was like, we'll get over by the bar, and I know where my flashlight is. And we're walking, and he grabs the flashlight. We go over to the drawer that's in the kitchen where the key was. We go outside and, get the door open. He's got the flashlight looking, and we don't have the fuse that we need to turn everything back on. And I was like, and what were we supposed to do if we could have got in?
Absolutely no.
No, I got that hand from Nebraska.
I know.
Shut up, boy. And so we went, he lit we had, what do you call them? Hurricane lamps and stuff. And we spent the night in the house in the dark with the lamps. And, we were like, okay, it's okay. We can see everything. And then my mom walks around the house going, we don't want any fires. So we're like, what the hell? No, leave one of them things on. I'm not crawling on the floor in the dark to go to the bathroom tonight unless you want me to pee all over the toilet. And so she left one on in the bathroom, but all the things, man, that is amazing. The stuff that went on in that house as we were kids. We had an old converted house that was 2 stories, and we had a barn on the side. And my dad decides that he's going to convert the barn and the upstairs into rental property because it's San Antonio. There's military bases. There's always people looking to live off base. He thought, man, I'm going to pay for my house by, having military people live with us. And during the renovation, we found out that sometimes old houses don't like when you tear things up. They get really loud and a little bit scary. They got so bad at one point, my dad hated coming home to the house alone. Because when he would be like, there ain't nothing going on. Y'all's imagination, y'all need to stop. He used to call, excuse audience, he used to call horror stuff and scary stuff spook shit. And he goes, I was watching that spook shit. Y'all frightening yourselves, and then something happened. He will never tell us what it was. But my neighbor said that your dad came flying out of that house, jumped in his truck and left, and he went to a bar. And he never told us anything of what happened. But after that, he didn't like being in the house all by himself. So,
wow.
And there are cities like that. San Antonio.
What do you think caused the sounds? Like, what was it?
I could tell you some horror stories, but I've been sworn to save them for scary stories until their sister gets on and we get close to Halloween. But most of us, we understood the house was haunted. The people who we bought it from had said the house is haunted. The people that brought the house after us, they renovated it, and they said that there were a lot of things that happened because they changed it up, because my dad put a bar in there and all kinds of stuff. And when they decided to change that stuff, the similar things happened. We found false floors where you could move the floorboards, and there were cubbies. And whoever lived there, we found old little bitty knickknacks and toys, so it had to have been kids. Stuff would disappear in the house. You'd like walk over and set something down, turn to go do something, come back, and it's completely gone. And the real weird part was we kept the upstairs locked. And when it wasn't rented, my dad didn't like us going up there and playing. So we weren't supposed to go in there. But we would find the stuff that disappeared downstairs, upstairs on the table, or in the kitchen. And like we had, the staircase had 2 light switches, one at the bottom and one at the top. And so you'd flip the light on the bottom, but before you could get to the top step, it would flip off and you'd be standing there in the dark. And so we got to where one of us stayed downstairs, flipped it on, and then somebody ran upstairs, and if it went off, we'd flip it again downstairs. And at one time it didn't work, and it stayed dark, and my brother was running so fast, tripped on that and just crashing. You could hear all this noise and him moaning, and me and my brother Gene ran out of the hallway, and I was like, what are we doing? He was like, Gene, I'm going in there. I was like, and so we ran back in, went up, and he had just messed himself up hitting furniture. He must have been moving fast. And but
there's no more motivator than something scary in the dark coming after you to
there
motivate
was
your butt to haul down those stairs quickly.
There was a time that we were all in the bed. My dad was up sitting there reading paper, and I hated it because we had to go to bed at 7 o'clock at night. We could hear kids playing outside, But my dad was real traditional. 7 o'clock, your butt's in bed. And he was in there reading. I thought, and my mom, I can't remember if she was working at night or not, but I remember hearing the stuff moving around upstairs. So my dad's like, I think somebody broke in. We're going to go upstairs and check it out. And what do you mean, we, Kimosabi? And he grabbed his gun and he opened the door, and he's like fucking pushing me and Mike like this with his hands. He's like, y'all going up there? He goes, no, Mike, run up there and flip that light on. My brother's like looking at him, what the hell? And I ran up, flipped the light on. My dad comes running, and my dad was a big guy. And he's like, boom, 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 I'm coming up the stairs. And when we got upstairs, all the furniture upstairs was moved around. And he was like, nope, downstairs, downstairs. And we're like, what's downstairs? And he marched us downstairs, always looking up, flipped the light off, locked it. And then the next day he put a, what do you call the big deadbolt things that you slide into the door and all that with the
deadbolt.
Yeah, well, not a deadbolt. That's a lock. It's the latch thing that you not just bolted on the side. It was mounted into the frame. And when that was locked, that door wasn't coming open. So he was, and he swore up and down he didn't believe in ghosts. But man, that house, I think, changed him.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I'll do it for sure.
Yeah, no doubt.
I could tell you some stories. But
There's a lot
that
that he could say that we got to wait for my sister to get on here.
Now.
Yeah. Oh, geez. Hey, it's like, hey guys, this is a good thing to come back to the next episode for. But
Right. There's your taste.
There's your taste.
What about you, David? You have any paranormal houses experience or anything outside?
I mean, not personally. The most that I remember vaguely was the house that my parents still live in. Me and my brother stayed in the same and in a room, and at the end of the hall from where our room was, there used to be a wall that had a bunch of mirrors along it. Eventually that wall got torn down, a door got made, and my room got converted because that was like kind of a formal dining area sort of space. And that eventually got converted to my room whenever they decided to split me and my brother up, and my sister was around. So they had to go convert that. We did that. And I stayed in that room. But before that happened, I remembered on a few occasions, and my brother remembers a few times of waking up, our door being open, because that's just how we slept. The door was open. We didn't close the door, all that stuff. And looking down the hallway, right? And you just have that sense of that there's something there, right? And it would go outside. And I just remember that somewhat vividly. The door never, I don't remember the door opening. I don't remember any of that. I just remember that sense of there's something down at the end of the hall. My parents were asleep. I didn't know what time it was because I was a little kid. We didn't have like a digital clock off to the side to let us know what time it was. I would have had to get up, put my glasses on and go check a little grandfather clock, turn on the light and check the grandfather clock, see what time it was. So I never knew what time it was. It was just really late at night, but you always just had that sense of a presence there down at the end. And that was really the only thing that ever happened to me that I recall, from that old house. The first house that now that I'm grown and have kids of my own, that we purchased and lived in, my daughter swore up and down that she saw a shadow man in her room. And so the first time she told me and my wife about this, it was like, all right, I'm not playing around. I just marched my way into the room, right? I said, look, I don't know what you are. I don't know who you are. I don't care. You're not welcome in this house. This is our house. Just basically told it, hey, get the hell out, right? You're not welcome here. This isn't going on. And after that moment, she never said anything about it again. She's sworn up and down in the house that we live in now that she sees stuff. I question it sometimes because she kind of uses it as an excuse to go down and sleep in the living room. So I can tell when she's being serious, right? And we've kind of talked about it. And then I can tell when she's just kind of saying it to say it. So, you always kind of got to gauge your kids and really kind of read what's going on. But of them all, she's really the only one that has any kind of reactions like that. But my wife, she's always had a lot of deja vu moments, right? Like she has very heavy deja vu, usually right before someone passes away. I mean, it's uncanny. She starts like just some moment will happen and she'll pause. They're like, hey, what's going on? And she'll be like, I've done this before, right? She has that sense. And then the more and more it happens, the more frequent it happens, almost within a week or so, I will find out about, a friend of hers will have passed away, a family member will pass away. It's always something like that, right? So it's not a direct like spirit that's oppressive or whatever. It's just she seems to have a little bit more of a tap into
it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of, it's always a little creepy, right? It's always a little odd whenever you have those moments that kind of match up like that. And it's one thing if it happens once, but when it's consistent, then it starts becoming a moment where when that kind of stuff happens, you start thinking to yourself, okay, what's coming, right? Once those moments start occurring, you're like, okay, change is coming, right? It's like, okay, change. And sometimes that's what it is. And I've kind of had those moments where I'll notice that, but it's less people passing away and just more like major shifts in our life, right? Like a job change or a real important, thing about our life, like moving homes or birth of a child, that kind of stuff. Sort of the same deal, not as strong as her, but it's definitely that something that she and I kind of both see just or kind of deal with. So it puts you a little on edge when you start noticing it. You're like, did I have one of those moments? Okay.
Yeah, a lot of children have that. They're my nephew Dallas, when he was little, he would get into these little fits where I need to talk to this person. God talked to him. He would not let up on it. And if you didn't, I mean, and my brother and his wife learned early on that meant something, because usually the person he had to absolutely talk to or see was about to die. And it happened so many times. I called my brother and I was like, if he ever tells you he has to see or talk to me, you better friggin' call, because you'll be having a heart attack or something. And I don't remember if Dallas remembers any of that or not, but
me and Amber have the thing where we have either the dreams or we have a feeling that something's gonna happen.
Amber would wake up with it and she's like, something's gonna happen today. Somebody's, and every time, when she knew when my brother died before I did, I had just come back from driving from San Antonio back to Houston to pick them up so we could go to him, because they were telling us this is it. And he I hadn't got the phone call, but I told Brandon to go pick her up from school for me. And when he pulled up, she got in the car and she goes, my uncle's dead. And he's like, I don't know. I just know that your dad said you need to come. We need to get you back over there. And it was her birthday. We were supposed to go out for dinner and everything. And when she got home, she saw me just, I had lost it. And she was like, I knew it. She goes, I could feel it. And
cute.
I had something similar happen to me when my mom left. I was in the middle of class and I was like, I need to call my mom. And I even went to the office and was like, can I use the phone? I need to call my mom. And they were like, no, you can't use the school phone for personal business. But you don't understand, something bad has happened. And they go, what do you mean? How do you know? And I tried telling them and they were like, no, you just have to wait until you get out of school. It's going to be nothing. Just don't worry about it. And then when we were all sitting there waiting for my mom to pick us up, like she always did, an hour and a half later, we're like, okay, well, we're going to walk home. And all of a sudden, my dad's pickup pulls up. And just like I knew it, knew I should have called. But yeah, that kind of ran through our family.
Because both
me
and Ember did it for both Papa.
Yeah.
That was hard. Because we were
It's just-
talking to it between both of us before we talked to you, and then whenever you came home and told us the news,
yeah,
we knew.
I think it's because everybody has an energy and and a force that affects the world around them, and when it disappears, you sense that, especially if you have this close connection. And I was there when my dad passed. I came home. I left him for 30 minutes, and he left after I went home to get some food and to change and stuff because I'd been there. And the nurse was like, you need to take a minute, go home and eat, get cleaned up, and then come back up here. Everything will be okay. I'll be here with him. And so when I got there, he was still him. I was sat in the room with him. He was still, I could see him, I could feel him, and he was still warm to the touch because I held his hand. So it hadn't been that long. And then over the hours waiting on my brother, I refused to leave the room. I didn't want to leave him in there by himself. I watched him, the color change in their body. We go through chemical changes, color leaves as we become cold. And it's went from being my dad to just a body. And I was like, wow, and I've never been there for anything like that before. And you can literally see as their energy leaves the body. So I'm a firm believer that, yeah, there's a reason why people can sense when somebody's gone. Especially you hear about it all the time with twins or close brothers and sisters or brothers and brothers. When across the planet, they live in two different countries, one knows exactly the moment when the other one leaves.
Yeah. I had one dream once, and I used to go hunting with my dad, and we went to a farmhouse that, about like 80 miles from where we lived at the time. And we used to go there quite a bit. And then one time I had a dream, and the guy that owned the house, he was close to us. So he died in the dream. And then like a month or two later, my dad sees his daughter, and it tells him that, oh yeah, he passed away, and I was like, oh shit, that's crazy, I kind of get that.
Yeah, we've had a lot of weird things. Some of the stuff we're gonna have to, like I say, because I can't talk about certain things without Amber.
Well,
But
did you
yeah.
send her the invite? I know she wanted to talk.
I mean, she did have she's in the chat, so I don't know if she was just
Okay.
busy. Remember, because she doesn't get home until later.
No, she's off today,
Oh, she is.
but she
okay.
has to be up early in the morning anyway. So she said she couldn't be on here too late.
Okay. So, but like both Logan and Edward had like those moments, like it seemed like they were talking to people or were seeing things inside each of the houses.
Even when Ember was a baby in the back of the front of the house, when her and Ember used to share a room, Ember would wake up with her playing and giggling and
Alice?
and
Yeah.
Alice, yeah, talking to somebody. And she's like, honey, who are you talking to? And they would just she would just giggle and laugh like somebody was playing with her. And
It's like, nope.
Edward
nope.
freaked out in my house because I used to have a bookshelf. All my books were over here, and I had this one little corner.
Oh man, I totally forgot about that.
And it was right where I had all my horror stuff, but they would not have known that because they were really young. And I remember Edward screaming and being terrified and running away, and Alice so afraid that she wouldn't, and I had to go pick her up. And I was like, what's the matter? Anna here, like, detective mom. And they're like, there's something right there. Can't you see it? Can't you see it? It's horrible. Make it go away. Make it go away. And I was like, okay, I kind of did what David did, but I'm used to doing smudging and blessings and things like that. And so I did it. And I always say that nothing that is evil or intends to hurt or do harm can find perch in my home. I have mirrors everywhere positioned because evil doesn't like to look at its own reflection. There's a lot of things about traditions like feng shui and other stuff that are there for a reason. And it took them forever to trust that corner. I mean, you could see them when they go over and play in that area, they'd just be staring. And I was like, I couldn't see anything of what it was.
The best time was that whole one where they were like, they went off because we were all down and they came back with weapons and they were ready to battle whatever the hell it was over there.
Yeah.
And I was like,
they were going to protect
you guys
us.
are okay? And I was like, all right. And, it's just like, it's amazing that innocence can have this like window to seeing things that people who are no longer innocent can't see.
Well, it's the way I described it to y'all when y'all were little. As we grow up, we learn the rules of the world and the universe. We have a lot of new negative things put on us, which then help build walls, which then allow us no longer to be able to connect with things.
Yeah, mental shielding.
Shielding, yeah. And I remember when Brock first started coming over when he was dating Amber, and he would spend the night, and I would tell him, if you see anything like a shadow or you see there's in my house, there's a perfume smell, and people have seen a female visage, and I've like been in bed and all of a sudden this beautiful perfume smell comes into the room. I've had there's a cigar, which is the nastiest smelling cigar I've ever smelled, and you kind of almost feel like a male presence. There's the kid, which is the one that freaked Brock out and almost made it where he never wanted to come back over here. And then the one, because he looks like Logan, Alice used to, going, why is Logan walking around? And Logan's not here. And then one time she was like, Logan, and she ran into the hallway and she goes, Logan just went in your room. And Logan's like in the other part of the house going, I did not. And she's like, there's a boy just went into your room and he looks just like Logan. And Ember's seen him and other people who visited. Anna's seen stuff.
Oh yeah, that was one of the ones that Ember or Anna called me, and then Ember was telling me about it. Was like, because they were both in the room that you sleep in now, that used to be Ember's room, and they were talking, and then they just started hearing voices, like a full-on conversation with people, and there was no one outside, no one in the hallway, and they're like, this is weird, and they're trying to make out what they were hearing. And Rihanna called me, I need to come home, babe. This is really creepy. I need you here because you push these things away.
and the singing, you hear singing. There's the children, the laughing. Man, that's the one that gets me, because like I'm walking in the house through the house and like to go get a drink, and all of a sudden you hear giggle, giggle, giggle. And I'm like talking to nobody. Okay, go on, do your own thing, but stay the hell away from me, whatever you're doing. And I used to get afraid at night. And then now I'm like, okay, do whatever the hell you're going to do. If you're going to kill me, do it. I'm tired. I want some sleep. Just do it. And then everything gets quiet again. There was when we were all in here, not you, but Amber and all of us. And it sounded like something heavy fell up in I have two attics. There's a nice decked attic, and then there's an attic that goes over part of my living room and then the garage. And it's got a really small area that's got some plywood laid down so you don't go through my roof. And it sounded like boxes falling and thumping. And I was like, open the garage, flipped on the lights. And you got to climb up into the attic to get to the light. So I'm carrying a lamp up there, and I look around and I'm like, there's no boxes up here. What the hell is this sound? And so then I would come down, leave the light on until in the morning, I turn that light off, and then trying to climb down again. And then I set up a bar that keeps the door, because there are times because I have to go through the attic to get to my car, because there's an alley where I park. And I'd come out and that stupid thing would be down. And I'd be like, Okay. Push it up. And it's stuck. It ain't coming down. Pull on the rope. It's really tight. It ain't coming down. A couple days later, oh, it's open again. What the hell? So I braced it. It can't be opened anymore unless I remove the brace from up there. When I first moved here, I was the last house on the left, surrounded by woods. I had coyotes and everything that we had coyotes and there's lynxes and stuff that used to just play in my yard. And it's all gone. It's all been taken out, and it's been replaced by subdivision.
Yeah.
But we used to be called one of the more haunted places because there were a lot of gunfights, a lot of people died. There was a lot of lynching. We used to have a lynching tree up here where a lot of people were hung. The sheriff was shot on the street up here by a stranger, so it's got a reputation. Huh?
What about the deputy?
No, I didn't shoot the deputy. Nobody shot the deputy. I shot the sheriff. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry.
But
some levity.
But all these little towns up here, have those kind of stories about them. We had there's a major railroad that used to be a huge stockyard up here. There was a lot of land fights between three of the biggest families up here, and they'd shoot each other on a regular basis.
The old Driscolls? No, I'm joking.
The three towns that we live in were one of the largest cattle barons' three daughters. They're named after them.
So the one thing I remember when you first moved over there was there was a tricycle.
I was gonna bring
the kid's tricycle. That dad's like, all right, now while you guys are up here, you need to watch for this tricycle. It's just gonna go up and down the street. And sure enough, it would just be like when we went to bed, it would be on one side of the street, and then we wake up in the morning, it'd be on another side of the street or on the sidewalk. And it was like, who's leaving this tricycle here? And then the funny thing is for a little while there, you could actually go back on Google Earth and go to actually where his house is at, and you could see the tricycle
just sitting there.
just sitting there, and then like go to the next day and it's in a different position.
What was funny was when the realtor was a friend of ours, and I had a choice between this house and a house that was three houses, but one of the house was really gorgeous. The property was really good. It had a horse barn, it had a stall for animals and all these other things on it. It was a lot of amenities, and it had a house. And so I was like, wow, the house is really old. It's really cramped, but man, I love everything else about it. And then we walked around the property, and as we came back, the back door I still have pictures of it, claw marks through, like something went through the back door, and it was three of them.
Skinwalker Ranch over here. What is this?
We were like, okay. And then she was like, well, do you want to go in and see the house? I said, yeah, let's go look inside. Went in, there was the family had a prayer altar there. You could tell they were Hispanic. So there was a altar where they prayed and everything. And there was a lot of smell of incense. And I was like, no, I'm good. Let's go to the next house on the list. And she goes, good choice. And we got in her car and we left. And so I narrowed it down between this house and another house, which had over 5 acres on it. It had a slabbed, what do you call it? Like a warehouse, not a warehouse, but a shed. It was a beautiful big shed that was all fully working, had electricity and everything. I was like, man, I love that. Had sort of a garage. It had a metal thing where you could park at least 2 vehicles in it. And the house was okay, but at the time, I didn't know I was going to have Ember and them living with me. And I was like, okay, this is big enough for me and if people come to visit. But then things changed and I had to get a bigger home. So I chose this one. So when she showed it to me, when we first walked in, and she goes, man, The first thing we saw was the tricycle setting in a field right next to my house. And I was like, wow, who's riding a tricycle through the dirt? And it was covered in grass and it was kind of high grass. And here's the tricycle. And we walked in and she was like, I don't know. I get a funny feeling in this house. I don't feel anything. And we walked around, looked at everything. And there was like, in my bathroom of the master bathroom, you really get this weird feeling in it. And it's because of the way it's designed, it kind of throws off your perspective. And they have not only a full length wall mirror, like who wants to look at themselves naked, but then the door to the closet looks like a portal to hell glass. And we both walked in. I was like, man, I really like it. It's the shower, the big, what do you call them? The tub. But it was like one of those, if it had jets in it, it would have been a perfect tub, but it was just the tub. And it had a walk-in shower, it had a toilet, had 2 sinks, big glass window. I was like, I won't be looking below a certain point on that mirror. And then we both turned at the closet and we were like, she goes, I wonder how big it is in there. I wonder what kind. And then we both shut up and I was like, do you get the feeling of intense evil coming from that door? She goes, yeah, it's kind of like a portal to hell. And then she starts to back out. And I'm like, no, I want to see how big. I'm not going by that door. You open the door, you're going in there by yourself. And Abby's like dead freaking serious. So she's backing away and I open it. It's this big closet. I was like, man, this is huge.
You could hide like 30 bodies in here.
You could hang a lot of people in here. I got to tell you a joke. Alice went with me. Was it Alice or was it Logan? I believe it was Alice. No, it was Logan. That's right, because Alice it was Logan. And Logan, we're driving, going and looking one time. She was taking us to look around. And Logan's sitting in the back seat and he goes, he's talking to Abby's son. And he's like, do your parents keep you locked under the staircase at night? And I'm like, what did he say? And Abby busts up laughing. She goes, I didn't hear anything. And he just keeps going and it gets worse and worse and worse. And Abby starts talking to him and egging him on. And I can see into the look of terror in her son's face. And I was like, no, that's not true. Stop. You need to quit doing it. My mom beats me and all this other stuff. And this is the same kid who told people at a restaurant that ninjas killed his parents and that we had kidnapped him. And Abby was like, oh, I love this kid. I was like, please don't believe a word. You're such a liar. Don't believe a word he said. So that set up the pretense of this woman who's showing me houses, thinking me and his mother, my daughter, his mom, are people from horror movies.
Horrifically abusive.
Yeah.
Parents.
Harry Potter's aunt and uncle.
And so she was like, she tried to talk me out of buying this house. And I was like, I don't have a choice. I have to buy it. And every time we came by to do the inspection, because there were a lot of work the previous owner had to do.
No, we really need to take abandon all hope, ye who enter off that closet.
Yeah.
Just sand it down. It'll be fine.
Well, now it's just filled with toys in there.
Now it's all filled with toys, so they can like play with it.
It's protected by like all the Toy Story characters now, and GI Joes and Transformers.
Yeah, you name it.
And Marvel Legends.
But when we came out, the tricycle was moved from the field onto the sidewalk. No kids around at all. We hadn't had the park built yet. The pool wasn't there yet. There's nothing over here that kid would want. And she was like, wasn't that? And I was like, yeah. She was like, mm-hmm. So what do you think? Do you want to put an offer down? I said, let me think about it. She goes, okay. So after a while, you come back a couple more times to look at the house, and the tricycle was moved different. Like at one point, right up.
Hold on, you're gonna have to say this again.
Up to the front.
Okay,
front
so
of my
you're
house.
gonna have to, hold on. Start at one point and tell the story again because you completely broke up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. No, it's not
What
you.
part?
It's the internet.
It's the
Or the spirits. Who knows?
It's the internet of the spirits. But you're talking about at one point the tricycle.
Oh, we came out it was now on the sidewalk in front of the house, right, kind of catacornered, halfway between the field and my yard. And she was like, wasn't that over? And she points over to the middle of the field, and I was like, yeah. She goes, and it's all I got out of was, She goes, do you want to put a bid on it? I said, let me think about it. So we kept having to come and go, and before I made the decision. And at one point we came, and the tricycle had been wheeled up to right in front of my porch. And she was like, I don't know. And I was like, it's kids. It's got to be somebody dinking with us, moving, So I moved it over away from where, so we could walk. And then I introduced Ember to the house, and she started noticing that the tricycle was constantly being moved. And I talked to one of the little girls that lived next door at the time, the original neighbors, and she was like, nobody touches that. They hate it. They all think it's haunted. Like, when the kids in the neighborhood don't want to touch it, something's up. And what does my grandson do? First thing he does is goes running over to it, goes, hey, look, and he's wheeling it down the sidewalk. And I was like, yoink, get over here. And I wheeled it back over to the end of the sidewalk where it dead end at the field. And I was like, stay. Finally put in the bid on the house. And one day we come in and we can't find the tricycle. I was like, oh, somebody came and got it. Guess what showed up in the morning? Right back over there by the field. And I was like, oh, it had to go to a store and get a drink or something. Where do tricycles go?
I'm in the bike shop, right? That's where they got to go.
Yeah, they got to go fix. They got to get stuff tuned up and everything.
That's right. Yeah.
And I left it alone. It stayed over there until they built that house next to me, and they got rid of it.
It disappeared. Yeah,
it just disappeared.
It started bothering them, and they had to bring in a priest and all this other stuff. And
don't be telling.
They just started throwing holy water onto it, and back tricycle back, and it turned into a bat and flew away.
Hey.
But it was white and red, bright red too. It had this like little white neck. It was like, what perfect colors for a haunted tricycle. I always wanted to do a story about it. The haunted tricycle.
You seen like any cryptids?
The bit from a Family Guy when they're making fun of Stephen King, and he's like, so Mr. King, are you working on a new book? And he's like, oh yeah, I'm writing a novel about a haunted lamp, and he just grabs it off the dude. And his agent's sitting there, he's like, you're not even trying anymore, are you?
That was when he was on his back medicine.
So were you asking, Di?
Oh, are you guys seeing any like cryptids or UFO sightings or anything?
Oh, I got some stories like that I'll share. We used to live near, we used to go, my dad was an avid fisherman, so we went to like every lake you could find in Texas. And we'd go down to the Keys and drive anywhere of vacation had to have a fishing place at the end of it or we weren't going. You should have seen him. We went to Disney World, and all he did was stay over in the area where because they used to allow beer, and all the adults sat over there and drank. So it was full of men, few women, but mostly it was moms walking around with kids doing all the stuff. I was proud of him because he made 8 hours before he made us leave. He was like, I'm done. Let's go. We're going. And we drove all the way to the Keys after we left there. But yeah, I've seen some stuff. My brothers both were merchant Marines. They've traveled all over the world. And they said, you see a lot of weird stuff when you're out at sea. And I believe them.
Yeah. Yeah, my dad was in the Navy, and he said he was going through like close to Peru and he saw like a bunch of witnesses, like people saw like old spirits like sitting on like a bench, and they were like, oh, that's crazy. And then they stopped, like, like at the port somewhere, and they said, oh, back further that way we saw some, like spirits or someone, people saying there. They said, oh, well, that's from, that's ghosts or spirits or whatever. Someone told them that's what it was, just crazy. He saw a lot more apparently, but there's stuff he doesn't want to talk about.
Yeah, it's like I tell Vince and them and everyone, they're always trying to get me to talk about certain things. There's just absolutely certain things I refuse to talk or repeat because I just don't want to track that energy to me anymore.
Yeah.
I used to be the guy who got all the books. I had tons of spiritual stuff. I had other books I won't talk about, but I used to go to this magic place in the Rice Village and this secondhand bookstore, and you could just find all kinds of stuff. And this is before I realized you have to be careful what you're bringing secondhand into your home, because there can be a lot of energy connected to that, and then you bring it to your home. I was really into going into haunted places. I snuck into downtown San Antonio, went into the Alamo back when you could still get away with it. Just tons, and it's steeped in a lot of Hispanic Mexican lore. So I knew what the Llorona, the Lechuza, and all these things were growing up. And so and I also came from Louisiana, and Louisiana has its own set of boogeymen and things that you have to stay away from. But I started I don't know why I did it, but if anybody had like something going on in their house, I'd go, okay, what have you brought in that's new? What have you done that's changed the routine? What something happened, something different had to happen to invite something in. And then if we could tie it to an object, I'd say, okay, I'm going to take this object and I'm going to take it from your home for a little bit. You tell me if that improves anything. And then if it does, I'm going to give it back to you, and you have to dispose of it because you invited it first. And I did it for, God, man, people used to want Ouija boards and all this other stuff. And there was a lady I worked with who was really having a problem. Her and her mother were very, very religious, and they bought a Ouija board and they decided to play with it. And I was like, it's the worst thing you can do. And I was like, when did it start? She goes, right after we played with it the first time. And she goes, we're scared. We don't sleep at night. You could see it affecting her. I said, all right, I'll take it, see how it works. I didn't open it, didn't touch it. I put it in a safe place that I knew that nobody was going to get to, and ignored it. And then she was like, man, our house is so great. The energy's changed. Nothing weird has happened. And I was like, okay, good. Now that we know that, you have to get this disposed of. And I said, here are certain things you can do to get rid of it. I don't want it. You have to take it. I can't keep it in my house because then it's going to start affecting my house. She refused to take that away from me. And we started having all kinds of weird stuff happening in the house. And it sat on a shelf where I didn't let anybody touch it. And one night we're watching TV, and the damn thing flies off the shelf, hits where the box flies open. And it started getting really bad. Well, my brother Gene was into this kind of stuff, and he wasn't afraid of anything. So Gene's like, I said, man, I'm gonna have to burn this thing, and I'm gonna have to bless the house, and there's so many things I gotta do to try to.
This is not the apartment we
negative.
live in.
Yeah. Well, I said house, but I meant the place we live.
Brandywood.
And he's like, I got it, and boxed it up. He took it, and our house got clean. And I have no idea to this day what the hell he did. He could have been driving down the freeway and threw it out on the road. I don't know what he did, but it was gone, and I was happy.
That's awesome.
My brother,
if all that shit gets out of your house, you're fine.
Yes.
Yeah.
And my brother is the kind of person that I bought the Necronomicon, because I wanted to read it. I was a big fan of H.P. Lovecraft, and I wanted to see what it was all about. But I knew enough that it was a fake story that had some real elements taken from history in it. But it was really written to build his mythos. But I remember one thing is that you don't play around with trying to name Cthulhu, because in it has proper pronunciation. I come home from work, my brother and Ray are sitting on the couch and they're drinking beer and they're going ka. What are you guys doing? We're trying to say this name. I said, you're in my house, you got the damn Book of the Dead in front of you, and you're trying to call the most evil deity in the book. And he's like, yeah. I gave it to him. I said, take it, go home. Dad's probably looking for you. And then they trounced out of the house. And I was like, okay. Armageddon
Averted, yeah.
Averted.
There you go. He's starting I think I heard that he's starting up some kind of cult down in Louisiana somewhere, and the feds are after him.
I wish he was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, we had all those other artifacts that like we tried to help people get rid of that just.
Oh, I know. I didn't name everything.
Yeah, that they would try to get rid of it. They didn't do it the proper way, and it would show back up at their house. And it's like, you gotta.
No, and it was amazing because people go and trinket shop and antique shopping all the time and never wonder about the history of what it is that they're bringing into their home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's tons of us retro game collectors that just go and buy all these retro games and stuff. You never know what you're gonna bring back with you.
Original Zelda in pristine case, but it's haunted by some horrific thing. Or are you gonna get rid of it, or are you just gonna live with the ghost?
I'm gonna get that thing slabbed. And
Spirit of Ganon shows up in your bedroom.
Yeah, find like a haunted little Samson cart. Like that's why people are getting rid of it.
Oh geez.
Like
that'd be hard.
Yeah. Have to cleanse it somehow. Like,
just
that's funny.
Dump it in holy water and then clean the board off. You'll be all right.
yeah.
Get a priest to bless it.
I used to call my daughter my little angel food cake baked by the devil. And one time we were in one of the largest churches in New Orleans, and I flung. We're in a church, and it's just that there's a few people in there praying. It's you want to be very reverent and all this stuff. And she's like goofing off, so I grabbed holy water, and I was like, "The power of Christ compels you." And she screams like somebody stabbed her. It goes running through the church, bursts out of the door going, "It burns, it burns." And she falls to her knees. And there's all these artists out in the courtyard drawing and all this other stuff for people. And they all were like, I was like, thank you. I was like, oh.
Embarrassing.
And then when I tried to go back in so I could finish taking pictures of the church, they're all like looking at me. Father of hell spawn.
It's kind of like that scene from Lost Boys when they're doing the service, and they all run in and like got their canteens and they're putting in the holy water. They're like, hey, and they run out.
Going back away from all of the real-time stuff and back to the entertainment side of it, that is something I need to put in the rotation this year. I haven't watched Lost Boys in years and years and years. Yeah.
Awesome. 4K.
And watch it. The two that I just pulled out from over here that I'd gotten a little while ago is X, right? Which the sequel just came out. What, Pearl, right? I haven't watched this yet. I hear it's really good. More on the slasher side. And then I've always heard about, I don't know if I can, let me see if I can,
pronounce
I
this.
don't know if I can show the front of this one. So give me a second.
Hold on.
It's a Possession with Sam Neill.
Oh, okay.
I would show the front of it, but there are some tatas on it. It looks like Medusa, but that one I don't know if it's more of a psychological thriller or not. I've kind of heard different things about it, but I've always heard it's really good. So I need to sit down and check that out. And then you talking about more of the Spanish side of horror, right? Kind of the Spanish influences of different horrors things. I saw the other day about how there was a a film anthology series called Satanic Hispanics, I think was the name of it. And it was,
I'm sorry. That just
yeah, it's just a group of these indie Latin filmographers that decide to get together, and they're just like, hey, let's just do an anthology, and it's all going to be based around, you know, like Latin American
the lore.
folklore and stuff like that. I'm like, that's kind of cool. So I ever since I saw that headline, I'm like, I'm not going to travel to wherever that city is to go watch this at a film festival. So hopefully it'll come out on something, like it'll be picked up by Shudder or somebody and be released maybe in time for the season or something. Because you know, that's one of the more that's one of the more fun things, right? Is seeing when people go and pull from lore that maybe not a lot of people are as familiar with, right? And you can see some more you know, monsters and things that you maybe you don't have any familiarity with, or because I mean that's where the whole Japanese horror craze came from, right? It was like, here's a set of ghost stories, right, that follow a completely different set of rules than what everyone's used to, right? It's like, you know, before that, ghosts show up, possession shows up, monster shows up, whatever. They have a very specific set of rules. Once you defeat them, they're gone and they go away, right? And now all of a sudden you have Japanese horror come in, and these spirits don't behave the way that we were used to, right? They don't react to things and stimuli. We're used to them. And then, you know, the famous thing about so many of them is after you think you've overcome, you think you've put them to rest, you think that now, you know, the danger's over, and then you find out that no, it's still present, it's still coming. It's
the stain
thing,
you know, because people commit suicide and everything, leave a stain. They leave a mark or a part of them there that grows, and as they attract other people, because there's like a place where people, I forget what country it is, where there's a forest in Japan, but then there's a volcano where people go and are attracted, and they go kill themselves. And they try so many different things to stop people from doing, and it just seems to grow and attracts people more and more. And then they just had to say, you can't come here anymore, because people would walk up, look down, and just jump in.
Well, there's the bridges, right? Was it Golden Gate Bridge, or which was the bridge they had to put the giant fence up to?
I believe that the one in, it's not New York, Chicago, or I don't remember. There is one of the bridges where everybody jumped off of.
Yeah, they had to put a giant fence up to stop them from committing suicide.
But as far as movies go, David, you need to watch Barbarian. I think it's called Barbarian. It is,
the
look
new
it
movie.
up. It's a new movie, and it is. I just watched the Firestarter too, the remake, and I was really happy with it up to a point, because it felt more like King's story, but at the end it deviates just like the original did, and I was like, why can't you just give us that ending? They always seem to want to change a Stephen King ending. You can never get what was originally there.
The Mist, anyway. Yeah.
Which I'm glad they haven't done the remake of Tommyknockers like they were
talking
threatening
about
to do since like 2013.
So Fright Night's getting a 4K release, and I got that next week. So I am super excited. Awesome. That's my favorite vampire movie.
Sometimes just being 4K doesn't improve it. They have to go in and do some digital touch up and things like that, and find the original prints of it to do it.
Well, and I'm hoping it's going to have some interviews and everything, because I think the one that I got was the foreign release, because of course, you know, the rights for Fright Night 1 and Part 2 were they went out of print when they released on the Blu-ray side, so I had to get the foreign release of it. Yeah.
Which one?
The Fright Night.
Yeah.
No, I knew that.
For the longest time, it's been real. I tried going out and picking those up for a while, and man, like everywhere you looked, it was out of print, or people were selling it for insane amounts.
Yeah.
And I guess it came back to print. I didn't get the 4K. It was like a year ago, or maybe a little bit more, that was able to pick up a decently priced copy of both of them.
Mm-hmm.
So,
That's same for me.
kind of like Dawn of the Dead, right? Dawn of the Dead does the same crap. It's like it comes out,
Yes.
everyone can buy it, and then if you don't get it within that window, it goes back out of print, and it's a pain in the ass to get your hands on.
What cracks me up is like nostalgia drives a lot of this stuff. And like I was just there's a couple of movies that I've been trying to find for years that I watched when I was younger. And one of them was Sword and a Sorcerer. I had such great and fond memories of that. And Lee Hornsby, one of the guys from the it was a Western with Barbara Stanwyck. I can't think of it. Big Valley. He plays one of the kings in it. And I was like, man, I saw it in a drive-in. And I went back and saw it twice. I loved it so much. And I used to have it on VHS. I never got it on DVD because it was never, done. And then when it did, it was expensive. When it came out on Blu-ray, it was really expensive. So I found it on Freevee, which is one of those streaming channels that's free, but you got to watch commercials. But what was great about that is they started, the commercial hits, and when it comes back on, it's right where it left off. So you don't lose anything to editing so that it can put in commercials. It's it's not on a time frame. You get the full movie. You just got to suffer through some of the stupidest commercials ever.
Dadites
I almost paid $89 for that once. And when I saw it, it was like, yeah, I'm gonna watch it again. And I was like, wow, that wasn't as good as I remember it. Sometimes your memory is much better than what it actually is.
Man, I'm glad I didn't drop $89 on it.
Yeah.
So the new one that's coming out in 4K, it's got like 13 hours of existing and new special features.
God.
Yeah, so I am excited about that. It just sucks, whatever, because like I think the run I have doesn't even have like the documentary stuff, because I love to, because that Roddy McDowell was very fond of those two movies and would have loved to have seen the third movie get made, but because of that tragic accident, nothing happened.
Well, it's just like Gunhead. Remember, we've been looking and waiting for that. We used to have that on VHS.
I have it on DVD, but I want it on Blu-ray now.
Well, as soon as you get the Blu-ray, you hand me the DVD and we'll be happy.
I will.
But the fact is that they've got that. It wasn't it 4K that you showed me.
Yeah. No. It's the Blu-ray. It's $80. Okay, it's only Japan.
Yeah, and I was like, why can't we get that here? Why are there some things that are in libraries we just can't get anymore? And then with Comcast, I think buying, I don't know if somebody bought MGM. Somebody is buying Universal. I believe that's going to be one of the same Warner Brothers. The Warner Brothers Discovery is going to be going after Universal. And I'm like, all that stuff's going to get stuck in a library. Stuck in a vault somewhere, and we're never going to see it. Sometimes they buy it just to have it in their library, but they never intend to release it. It's, look at all the streaming services we have, all the cable channels we have, and they play the same movies in a cycle over and over and over again. We could show every merit movie that's ever been made and still not have shown everything.
Yeah, there's still quite a bit of stuff that's coming out that like horror wise that we've completely not had on a DVD or a Blu-ray format, that's been stuck on VHS for the longest, and that's kind of cool. But like, we were talking about horror TV shows the other day, Dad. It's like, what was it, Werewolf, the TV series? Yeah, that still hasn't gotten some kind of physical release for.
And like Monsters has been put out on DVD and as a series. It's just what gets one set out and another one not. Look how long it took them to do the Friday the 13th series, which was great in the day. And we were thinking about, okay, what were all the shows that first started on Sci-Fi, when the Sci-Fi Channel was great and not known for just its horribly made movies with tatas and everything else.
Hey,
I understand tatas have a time and place, but you know,
So
I like in
Andy Sidaris made an entire career on tatas.
what was the one where they were the walking salmon? Doug McClure in it, and they were wanting to mate with all the women of the town. I can't remember humanoid somethings of the deep. I can't remember what it was.
Oh, yeah, they weren't salmon, but yeah, they were like creatures from the Black Lagoon type things.
Yeah, but they were from an experiment that was supposed to help grow fish faster to help feed population.
Yes.
And then they evolved and decided they wanted to become more man.
Isn't that the problem with most horror movies? It starts out with, we're going to try to find a way to shortcut the process of harvesting food so we can feed the masses for it. And then, of course, all that ensues. And then we have giant cockroaches that come out of nowhere and eat people, or other.
Well, it's not always
or
food, like Food of the Guys was making everything big, but there were some really great horror little anthology series. Like there was one, and I can't remember if it was one of the remakes of the Twilight Zone, and it had the episode called The Lift, and it was about the two brothers trying to figure out what happened to their dad, who was a geneticist who was trying to create a food source to feed an overpopulating world. And certain animals got a hold of it in his lab. So they found like a giant rat, a giant cat that was like the size of a puma. And then they get taken out by a giant spider who would also eaten some of the fake meat that they had their dad created. And they also found their dad, and he was food. And then they get chased through this warehouse by the giant spider, and it gets them in the elevator. That's why the episode was called The Lift. Man, I love that stuff, because that was the stuff that was a throwback to the horror comics of my childhood. They had those kind of stories.
So, Di, I know that you wanted to talk about like some horror anime real quick, and then some of maybe the games you might be playing that are horror themed.
Okay, well, let's start with manga. Have you ever read the Uzumaki books? There's like 3 of them.
I know of them. I haven't read them yet.
Okay, I've only read Uzumaki. I definitely recommend reading that one or looking at that one.
Hey, can you pull it up and show the audience?
Yeah. Let me.
That's the one that's famous for all the spirals as a part of it, right?
Yeah.
Was that the one that was turned into the movie Spiral, where the village, people in the village start dying, and it's all related to spirals?
Yes. Yeah, it's
I never saw the manga, but the movie was messed up.
Let me try to pull it up. Let's see. Oh,
when the one guy commits suicide in the washing machine, that was messed up.
Yeah, I don't know how to do that.
What you want to do is do share screen.
Okay.
And then
it says host disabled participant. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all. I don't know if you could edit it now or fix it now.
I can do that right now. Hold on.
Well, I actually have the book. Just give me a second. I'll get you the real deal.
Okay. Yeah. And I'll just put a little image. Make note when I get to this point. I'll add it in.
The other thing is the difference between body horror, and monster movies.
Oh, and that, and then also there's the torture porn. There's
torture porn. Well, I call it anything that's
gore,
torture porn. If it evolves around somebody capturing somebody and mutilating them or doing horrible things to them, that's I guess it is horror, but it's not horror that I grew up with in the sense that I understood
it skews close to slashers, right? But it really is whenever the slasher part of it gets taken to an extreme level, right? Because I mean, would you consider like the Friday the 13th stuff to be that kind of deal with like the way that you see the people die, or is it because it's so over the top and silly that it kind of blunts kind of the horror aspect of it, whereas something like famously Hostel, right, is so visceral and
well, and like I Spit on Your Grave when it first came out, The Last House on the Left, all those movies that were exploitive in violence and the nature of the story that they were telling, to me that was different. Now, sometimes horror becomes a caricature of itself. I think that happened with Friday the 13th. It definitely happened with Freddy.
well,
Here's the main book. It's thick.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a thick book. That's a manga. The artwork's really good. The art style is really cool. And
Yeah, you can actually pick up a
isn't
But
it
it's-
based on a novel?
it might be.
Is
But you
it?
could pick up a coloring book for that artwork. I saw
Oh,
that at
really?
Walmart. It looked really cool. So I mean, I was like, it was like either that or the one I got that had all the monsters from lore
yeah.
in it.
Yeah. There's I think there's 2 or 3 or 4 books in the series, but this is the only one I own right now. But I definitely want to pick up the other ones. It's made by Junji Ito. So
Is that a hardcover?
oh yeah, it's a hardcover. Yeah.
I've never
Okay,
seen it
cool.
in hardcover. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, let me see. I don't know, like if they tell you the print or what when it came out, but I know I bought it like 9 years ago, so I know it's kind of old. So, but
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think let me look. I think I've seen it at Barnes Noble and in Uzumaki.
let's see. Oh yeah, this one's. Oh, I got the 3rd printing apparently, October 2014. So, but the first printing was October 2013. So, almost 8 years ago or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like you can get the Blu-ray right now for $24, which is the movie, and it's
Oh,
just
okay.
called Uzumaki.
Yeah, and I vaguely remember that they were going to do a remake of that. So
Yeah. Oh
I think
wow, that'd be
the
cool.
movie is what they're doing. Something like or new. Yeah, there's some either anime or movie form of it that I thought that was the last thing I saw for it, that they were going to be doing I don't know if it's like an Americanized version of it or something,
Mhm.
but yeah, there's more being done with that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely have to look into that because there's. I don't
So do
know.
you guys remember when it was either Cinemax or HBO did a thing called Asian theater? You know how like we used to have the martial arts shows that came on the Saturday. They had martial arts theater and stuff like this. Was all Asian horror, and it was like after 3 o'clock in the morning. And so sometimes I'd get up and then I'd look to see which was on. And man, I was exposed to so much of that. That's where I saw Audition for the first time. There was one about a detective trying to figure out why all these girls were committing suicide, and it was a curse. And I don't remember what that one was called. There's just so many things that I would expect. That's where I first saw not the Ring, the original Ring, not the American version first. And I hated when that was taken off because, it was great. And, some of them had English dubs, some of them, subtitled, but, there's not a lot of that now.
Mhm.
Yeah. Have you guys seen the train on Busai? I think it's like a zombie.
Busan,
Yeah, Busan.
zombie, yeah. And I've
Yeah.
seen, okay, Soul Station is an animated movie, which is the prequel, and it talks about the first infestation. Soul, Train to Busan is once it starts spreading, and then Peninsula is it takes place to the woman who survives at the end of Busan.
Oh
And it's
wow.
her story and how that there are ships that are coming to take people off and to places where they're safe on the water, but you're really not safe from it at all because it's, what it is. And then I just watched a movie that I could have swore, and it was all about a chemical release that resurrected first animals and then people. And it was another Asian film. And it seemed to me
Return of the Living Dead. No,
it should have been in that series because it had the same look and feel, but it was from a total different group production company and had no connection to it. But I was like, man, you got to be kidding me, because deer and all the animals came live, started attacking people. And then if the people were bitten, it was a military release made to look like an industrial accident. And in the end, and it was the first movie I'd really seen where you see armies just tearing into just massive hordes of zombies and keep firing. And I'm hollering at the television, headshots, because headshots kill them in this. But they're all like just being shot up in the chest and they're, falling because of the masses of bullets hitting them. But they get right back up. I was like, raise the barrel just a little higher.
Yeah, shots are great and all, but if you shoot them enough and damage the body enough, right, that it should eventually become physically incapable.
Unless you live in a Walking Dead universe where skeletons can get up without any muscle tissue and walk around.
When you get to the point where you don't have the muscle tissue to be able to do anything, you're just going to be like, just so for lack of a better term, a booby trap, a landmine.
But it's like, if you don't have muscle tissue and you weren't resurrected from the Necronomicon because you couldn't remember the magic words to say, it's like, all right, now we're getting into crazy land, right? But I was actually trying to think about manga, and I've talked before at length about the one horror manga that I thought was really good and would love to see them do some kind of update for it, which is Biomeat. But the other one that I read a long time ago, and I found out that, to bring it back around to you mentioning Audition, Takashi Miike actually directed a short miniseries based on a manga called MPD Psycho, which is multiple personality. But it's not multiple personality disorder. It's multiple personality detective psycho. And it's all following around this detective who has multiple personality disorder. And they're trying to hunt down this like serial killer who's murdering people all through this town and some other stuff. And I never finished the manga. I don't know if it ever got finished. I never saw Miike's series on it, but I just remembered some of the scenes from the manga were pretty vivid, like where the killer basically planted people in the ground like plants, which got reused again in, God, what movie was it?
Well, Motel Hell had where the farmers were growing. I mean, they buried people up to their neck, and then once they fattened them up through a tube that they fed them through the neck, they attach a tractor to them and snap their neck and pull them out of the ground and then sold them as barbecue.
No, I'm thinking one where it was specifically people that were buried into the ground, and they like, there was a little IV bag that was hung up there that was running fluids down, and it was like a person's arm was the only part of it that you could see stuck up from the ground.
Stuck up out of the ground. Yeah.
I want to, you know what? It might have been a TV series. That might have been one of the episodes from Hannibal, that very sadly short-lived little 3-season TV series with Mads Mikkelsen as Hannibal.
Hannibal, yeah.
That TV series is fantastic. Holy crap.
Except, yeah, the problem when you do a prequel about somebody, you change their personality types, and that kind of struggled a little bit. I was kind of glad when they returned Dexter back to his.
Hold on, guys. So it looks like my sister's going to join in to tell her one ghost story. So for now, give you guys a kind of a tease. So, all right, sis. So you want to
take it away?
Yeah, take it away.
So I'm not sure what all you guys talked about tonight already, like what stories were told, but I've got one. that I remember very vividly, which was in the trailer, Paul's trailer, when we lived there. And we used to have these touch sensitive lights where it would dim based on you touching it. And
Yeah, it
we'd
was
always
off your electrical, your own
Yeah.
electrical field was what made the lights work.
Yeah, so you like tapping it with anything that wasn't like a person, you know, like scissors, pencil, whatever, it wouldn't register. It was only if you touched it. And even like the back of your hand, it really wouldn't do it very well. It was like had to be touched. This was when nobody was home. This was, I think you guys were all at work or something. I had gotten home from high school and I was just sitting there. And this was after we put the wood type flooring in the hallway. We ripped all the carpet out.
Yeah.
So you could hear creaking like somebody was walking. And then all of a sudden the lights would start doing it wouldn't flicker. It would go from being like bright to dim to off to on. And it just kind of was like all over the place. And then it sounded like somebody was just pacing through the hallway. And I remember just being really annoyed with it, not even scared, just like, again, really? And then I just like yelled for it to stop, like, stop. And it just all got quiet. Lights went back to the normal thing. The footsteps quit walking up and down. One of the other things that happened in that trailer was I used to sleep with my door shut when I was a teenager, just because I knew if somebody had been in my room, if my door was open. And there was one night that I'd fallen asleep and I was woken up by something. I don't know why I woke up out of the middle of just a dead sleep. And there was a guy kind of at the foot of my bed. Like he was just he sat at the foot of my bed and he was looking at me and he was talking, but it was like, you ever hear those like in movies where it's almost like every word somebody's ever said in their life whispered, like, it's just that doesn't make a lot of sense, but you can tell they're talking, but you can't make out what they're saying. And he was just real adamant about me listening to him. And he was dressed in like almost a period piece. I want to say like almost like Dust Bowl, the Great Depression era. It wasn't like Victorian style or anything like that. It was just, that was the whole way he looked. And he was trying to get my attention on something. And I remember going, I can't understand what you're saying. And then he drew my attention to my door and my door was cracked open. And then when I looked at my door and I looked back where he was gone. And so it was just real like random things that happened in the trailer. I don't know if you guys had any weird experiences in the trailer, but yeah.
We did. I mean, I'd have to really think about some of the stuff that happened because there was just weird things when you were there by yourself. That where like you would just hear voices, or you would hear like the worst one was the one that Dad always would talk about, was where you would hear us. Like
Yeah,
I
I couldn't stand being in the house knowing I was alone and hearing y'all like, Dad, or what is this? And it would be either one of y'all. And we used to call them mimics.
Mm-hmm.
They were, I don't know what you describe them as, but they would mimic the voice of somebody you love to try to draw your attention.
whether they're good or bad, we didn't know.
Yeah.
But it was, I just remember there was one time I remember, I think it was Dad, and I think I was home in my room playing probably Final Fantasy 11, and I heard Dad say something, and I'm like, well, okay. When I went in there, he wasn't there. Went to the house, wasn't there, and I was like, looked at the clock, and I was like, oh, he's not even home yet. And I was just like, all right, well, I'm gonna go back to my room and start playing Final Fantasy 11 again. But
like when Big Josh lived with us, I remember there were a couple of things that freaked him out, and he was like, oh, I'm gonna go visit a friend, or I gotta go do something. What's the matter? Nothing. Don't want to talk about it. I gotta go. I was like, well, you give it power over if you don't take control.
But the weirdest thing is that no matter where we've gone, There's always been something. And it's not that we've always lived in a haunted house. Like, I don't think that that's necessarily the case, but there's always been some sort of activity no matter where we go. Whether that's just we're sensitive to it and can pick it up more than most people. Be like, oh, it's the wind, it's rats in the walls, it's this, that, and the other. You know, like, again, I don't know what all y'all talked about on this episode, but just there's been so much, like, even in my dad's house currently. I remember
I talked about
We could talk about Dad's house.
I talked about Brock.
about how we told him
That-
what the house was like, and then he came over and saw the woman pass by the kitchen in the hallway and was like, nope. And I was like, I told you, I'm not lying. Like, even now, he just does not like being in my dad's house by himself. He's like, no, I don't wanna.
But
Currently, we're having a fork issue in my house. All of our forks are disappearing. Just the forks.
It's not silverware, right?
Yeah, just the forks. The knives are fine. The spoons are fine. Forks are just dropping off the face. Of the
I remember when y'all used to get mad at me because I go, where's all my silverware? I had a drawer full of forks or spoons and they're all disappearing. What do you think we do? Throw them away? I don't know what you do with them, but I
Bring
had
them
a
back.
drawer full of
Yeah, it
them.
was like, no, it
And
was,
now I don't.
it was like, I know what's going on. You guys just don't want to do the dishes. So you're throwing away dishes.
Yeah, it was
I don't
like-
want to wash this one. Throw it away.
Yeah,
Little
so-
did we know, we let some fae in the house, and it's taking our silverware as offerings.
No, and I think that there are certain times of the year the veil gets thinner, you know, and it's multiple cultures that believe that same thing, you know. We've got Halloween coming up, and how do you say it? I can't do it now that my mouth's all messed up. My jaws. What?
Just say Day of the Dead.
Day of the Dead. I like the other way of pronouncing it.
I know.
That guy really messed up my life. Broke my face because I can't sing certain or say certain words. It doesn't form right. I hope he has.
Yeah, that's why if I'm ever in Denton, if I see him, I'm gonna end up in jail. But
Right now I'm just
That's
I'm hoping he has explosive diarrhea no matter what he's doing right this second. I
Just-
hope his butt blasts off and explodes.
Just perpetual Montezuma's revenge.
yes. So I was
Uh.
gonna let you know that me and Logan have decided that every Sunday, as long as my job situation doesn't change, I applied for a new position at work, but that we're going to go to a haunted destination close by with all of his friends. So this Sunday we're going to go to it's called Witter. I think it's Witter, I think it's Witter Castle, which is in Lake Worth, and it's got a history to it where the guy who had it built was set to marry into this certain family, and the bride was seen running off, and they found her dead in a lake. It was by the, excuse my, and 2 months later, he married her sister. And then fast forward, for I don't even know how many years, it was purchased by another family, and that family's son had committed suicide on the property. And then eventually Lake Worth purchased the castle and was supposed to turn it into some sort of project for that area. And they ended up not doing it. And now it's just condemned and starting to fall apart, but you can still go on the property and walk around. You just can't go in the castle because they've got it all gated off. So we're going to go take them and get them take pictures, walk the ground, stuff like that. We're going to go to Goatman's Bridge at some point, which is in Denton. And then there's also another one that's in, I'm trying to remember, is it in the one in Arlington, babe? The Screaming Bridge? Yeah, there's another one called the Screaming Bridge, which is like the early 1900s. I want to say 40s or 50s, maybe. Was it 60s? I'm going.
Automobile crash.
Well, I guess they had automobiles in that time.
Not
Anyway,
regularly.
so it was the 60s. Excuse me. Yeah. It
I
was
can
a
confirm that there were automobiles in the 60s, just to let you know.
Yeah.
I thought it was like a
So
bit.
what I'll
But
say
anyway.
is that whatever you do, record it, and if you want, I can help you edit it, and we can post it. So
Okay. Yeah, we could do.
It's too bad that the mental hospital or whatever that was, it's up here near by Denizen and
The
Sherman.
women's hospital.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's closed and you can't even get close to the property anymore.
I would love to have that house because it looks so much like the Resident Evil mansion. It looks so good. But the Screaming Bridge, what happened was it only allows one car pass at a time. And one of the cars that was on the bridge did not have its lights on. And it was a bunch of teenagers joyriding at the time, and they hit an oncoming car on the bridge. And they hit, there's only a real short concrete wall, and they flipped over it and went into the ravine creek thingy, and they died. So you can actually go onto that bridge. It doesn't connect to the other side anymore, but now people go up there and they'll tag it. Like they'll put like their signatures. There's a whole bunch of like, I'm trying to think of the names of it right now. My brain is fried right now. Among Us characters. Like people went out there and drew Among Us characters.
so it's all a bunch of sus people, huh?
A whole bunch of sus people. So what I'm going to do is, since it's just they just let people go and you can tag, you can do whatever you want over there. I'm going to go get like 3 neon colored spray paints, and the kids, his friends don't know, but I'll have a backpack and I'll tell them, hey, leave
And
your
then
money.
I'll get a phone call. Hey, can you post bail?
No.
So
So our goal is to go to different spooky places every Sunday this month. One of them I want to do like where we go to an old graveyard somewhere and have the kids go run off and try to find like the oldest tombstone they can and get, paper with a crayon and just kind of.
No. You each get somebody, get them to bring a digital recorder. They walk in, put it on record, and set it on Tombstone like we used to.
Are
And
you going to
listen
supply the funds for that?
No, they got parents. Tell them it's for school.
what is this right here? This is a phone.
Your phone is
Your phone works too. You just let it sit there. You just remember where you've
all
left
you
it.
all you wanted to do is do an audio recording.
Just see if you can catch an EVP.
Yeah.
The only thing I was going to say at this point is random, we talked about anime, movies, random personal stories, all that stuff, right? One thing that doesn't get talked about, I don't feel like nearly as much as music. And I've gone back to, I found this one band randomly. I think they're slightly more well known now, but they're called Lord Huron, right? Huron. And 2 of their albums, Strange Trails and Vide Noir, have a very cool, like if it's kind of folksy, sort of folksy, like neo folksy music. And those 2 albums specifically have a very Lovecraftian kind of spin to a lot of the lyrics. Like if you really listen, they're concept albums, so they're telling a story over the course of the entire album. And if you really listen to the things that are being said, the 2 of them almost kind of marry together as they go through, but it's basically 2 different stories of people slowly falling into a descent of madness. With dark things in the woods and all the other good stuff. So it's you listen to the music and it doesn't sound like it's Lovecraft, but if you really pay attention to the lyrics and follow along with the story that it's telling, it definitely has very Lovecraftian tones to it. So yeah, if you get any time or whatever, and go check out Lord Huron's Strange Trails and Vide Noir. They're pretty sweet albums in this spooky time.
Josh turned us on to a band who does similar. Each album is a different horror kind of genre, but they all connect to tell a greater story. It's a much bigger story, but each album covers a particular type of horror. but it's interconnected. So as you listen to each album they release, you get a full story. And their videos are designed to visualize some of those characters. So there's kind of like a Freddy story. There's demonology. There's Child's Play. There's Jason. All the the monsters that they grew up with. And I cannot think of the name of the band. He was supposed to send it to me so I could try to find or listen to them in sequence instead of broken.
In fairness,
out
I
of
think
order.
that the most cultish and disturbing musical group that's out there that talks about monsters and things would probably be the ICP, right? The Insane Clown Posse.
Oh, give me a break.
And the Juggalos. I'm pretty sure that somewhere in there they've got like a Cthulhu statue hidden underneath the stage that everyone's secretly just dumping tons of Fago into the ground, and it's
No, Spinal Tap had it for the Druids in Stonehenge.
Okay.
And they cranked theirs all the way up to 11.
So I'm gonna do the shout out for this week, and this week shout out is going to be for Zombie JLT1. Good dude, has a really great podcast, the Retroactive Trio podcast he does with Retro Ryan and Big Family Gaming. I've been on there quite a few times. It's great listening to them talk about whatever topic they have. But Zombie's a big horror buff. He loves talking about horror movies. He loves playing horror games. He does do live streams on occasion. It's been a while since he's done some, but he's looking at doing some pretty soon. But check out his channel. He's a good dude.
You need to get him on here.
Speaking of bands that are kind of horror related and tell a story, you guys know this, but I've just recently kind of gotten into Ghost, and their stuff kind of tells a story. They very much are a little heavier than classic rock, but I like to think of them as the modern Kiss. A lot of people are like, they're devil worship, and I'm like, yeah, it's kind of like anti-Christian, that kind of thing. Like he's basically like playing a dead pope.
Okay.
If you want to go the opposite route of like the sort of sludgy metal of Ghost and all that, and you want to go into full on like just creatures of the night and Catholic werewolves and total and utter nonsense power metal, you can go listen to Powerwolf. Does a lot of that.
So, all right. So what I want to do with this going forward with the podcast episodes for October, we're going to do this whole choose your adventure style of episodes. So you have two options. We can either talk about more ghost stories next episode, or we can talk about our favorite horror movies and genres. Different things, like whether it be video games, comics, movies, anime. We'll do a whole deep dive on horror themed things like that. So you got more ghost stories and in-depth ghost stories, or you got this other topic for horror media. Let me know down in the comments below, and whatever you pick, if there's enough votes for one or the other, so choose one or two in the comments, and then we'll go from there. I'll actually list everything in the description below. So, all right, everyone, we hope you enjoyed this first episode for October. There's many more to come, as I said. We love to read your comments on what the stories we've told or just different topics we discussed tonight. We hope you all have a great one. We'll catch you later.
I've got your back, bro.
Oh gosh. Biddy, that's all, folks.